So, I was going to do a deep dive analysis about Hannibal. I promise you that was my intention. But as I was trying to come up with ideas about what to talk about, I didn't have anything good or something original. Hannibal Lecter is a metaphor for women? Done. Analyzing murder husbands? Done by 100 people. Analyzing the grotesque gothic beauty of the visuals? Done. So, this video is basically gonna be me going over the things I love about Hannibal and some things about season 4. Should Netflix give us one. Subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. I make videos about crime shows. I should start with how this show has ruined everything else. Hannibal, made on a TV show budget, is more beautiful than most big budget movies. Not only is it beautiful, the writing is amazing. The thing that people advised writers about not giving the audience what they think they want, but giving them what they haven't yet realized that they want, which usually results in a will they, won't they situation or repetitive writing. On Hannibal, that advice works. I believe from season 1, fans had started shipping Hannibal and Will as they kind of co-parented Abigail. Fans wanted them together. The writers knew about it, and instead of queerbaiting it or making it a bromance, Brian Fuller, who hadn't initially had murder husbands as a romantic thing, turned gears into that direction. Their relationship evolved. By the end of season 2, no one could say that there wasn't something romantic there. But season 3 didn't just let Hannibal and Will get together. Will chased down Hannibal to Florence, in the process getting to know more about Hannibal's past. Even after they escape Mason Verger, they don't end up together. Will rejects him and they spend 3 years apart, Will building a life for himself and Hannibal locked up. As Hannibal, he knew Will would one day come back, and he did. Over the second half of season 3, Will realizes that Hannibal loves him, and when he asks Bedelia about it, she basically says yes. After that, he realizes, once having killed Dollarhide, that him and Hannibal aren't so different after all. This, right here. We have been expecting that for at least 2 seasons, and while it takes Will a season and a half to figure it out, none of it is fake. He needed to go through what he did to come to the conclusions that he did. Same for Hannibal. Betrayal and forgiveness. If they had become a thing before all of this storytelling and arc, then it would have been less. Almost inauthentic. Moving to the murders. I doubt that in real life some of these murders are even possible. Specifically, the turducken of human, horse, and bird comes to mind. What even was that? Or the Muriel, or the human totem pole? Like, I get that making humans into fertilizer for mushrooms is possible, but a man turning the skin on his back into angel wings? A man turned into a tree, not branches or flowers attached to him, literally growing a tree from him. What were they smoking during these writing sessions? I am a writer, specifically a crime writer, and the basic stuff works for me, and I know how to write crime, how to do everything. But not once before watching Hannibal did creativity in killing was a concept for me. Not this kind, at least. The artistry of it all. Human origami heart, anyone? Basically, what I'm saying is, whatever that they're smoking, I want it. There is a review, and I'm sure most of you have seen it, which describes Hannibal as a show where, paraphrasing here, people talk like gothic vampires from the Renaissance with a poetic operatic tone. And yes, that is what the show is. At first, on my first viewing, I was like, why are all of them so dramatic? I mean, I like drama as much as the next person, but like, imagine having a normal conversation with them. I can't. On my second viewing, I thought this was a dramatic, Shakespearean, tragic romance where two people don't realize that they love each other until it's almost too late. Everything after that, every viewing after that, my brain was, this is a rom-com that only Hannibal and Will understand, with the two of them making cannibal jokes to each other throughout the whole series. So moving on to the visuals, they aren't just like regular visuals. The visuals give us an insight into the character's mind in a way that no other show does. Any other show would have narration instead of the way it depicts blood dripping or the stuff that the characters see, like in Dexter and You. But here, we have the stag, the Wendigo, Will's thing that he does, his whoosh whoosh, or Hannibal's teacup, or Dollarhide's transformation into a dragon. The music, I don't even know any of this music, but the quality it gives the show, not to mention, it fits in with Hannibal's personal aesthetics. The eerie beats that they use for suspense scenes and the overall classical music throughout the show, it just elevates the show into something that nothing else has ever been able to reach. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, there are good music moments in other shows too. But this show, it takes it to another level. The music speaking where the characters don't. And don't get me started on them speaking. They are not speaking, they are whispering. They loud whisper throughout the show. But I will say this, all of them, every single actor has good diction. Imagine if they whispered and we couldn't even make out the words because they jumble into each other. How would we understand the conversations that they're having? How would we understand which metaphor they're on? Who is the stag? Who is the god? Who is the destroyer of worlds? Also, Hannibal is such a fan of talking about God. There is always something there where he turns around everything to being about God. God did this, God did that. At least I'm not as bad as him. You see, Will? If I'm being honest, he's kind of like Lucifer in his more modern interpretations. So in almost all of modern Lucifer interpretations, like the Lucifer from Supernatural, the Lucifer from the show Lucifer, the one from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, they all have a little of what Hannibal has. The Supernatural one has the whining about God down to a T. And the Lucifer one and the Sabrina one are like good looking, sophisticated, which fits in with Hannibal's image of being a sophisticated devil. It's about to get religious in here. Despite the fact that I'm not even Christian, so buckle up. The devil is usually seen as a tempter. Check. Hannibal tempting Will into becoming a killer by forcing his hand in season 2 just to see what he would do, and Will falls for it by sending a killer after Hannibal. Randall Tier and Dollarhide were his patients he manipulated into becoming killers themselves. There is some quote about how the devil is in horns and half goat, that he isn't ugly but he comes as everything you ever wanted, aka the concept of like this a handsome devil, which Hannibal is. Dressing up in expensive suits and cultures so that people don't see what's underneath him. Image he builds of himself, his person suit. The devil is also linked to intelligence in a twisted way, and Hannibal is usually the most intelligent person in any room he's in. Though technically I think that the devil is linked to knowledge, which again brings us roundabout to Hannibal, because Hannibal too is the most knowledgeable person in any scenario, because he knows what other people might be thinking, what normal people do, and he knows how to manipulate anyone into doing what he wants them to do. Then there is the devil on the shoulder concept. All of season 1 is Hannibal trying to turn Will into a killer by the power of suggestion alone, and we have seen him do this to other characters. Examples: Margot and Mason Verger. For Margot, he literally says that killing Mason would be better for her, and even suggests that she find a loophole in the Verger family contract where only the male heir could inherit anything. And when that works, when Margot has figured out the loophole, when she has acted on it, he turns around and suggests to Mason, should Margot find a loophole, he'd be ruined. at the same time, he is trying to tempt Will into killing Mason. And none of this does he straight up say out loud. It's winks and nudges. Bedelia almost becomes a Lilith figure. Though at the same time, Alana could also be seen as a Lilith figure, as the woman under the devil's control. Alana was kept completely blind by Hannibal. As he said, he worked really hard to blind her, and Bedelia knows that he is planning to eat her. In the meantime, making her as tasty as she can be. Some of the stuff on the show makes me really concerned about Bryan Fuller. Is he okay? And in the midst of all these killers and basically evil people running around, the true horror of the show ends up being Franklin. The touchy, overly friendly guy ended up being more uncomfortable than the dozens of murders. 3 seasons, and the 2 things I still find hard to watch are Franklin and the scene where a guy in the I Muriel peels himself off from it. So let's follow Franklin with Chilton. Quick question, why does Bryan Fuller hate Chilton so much? Every season there's something horrific happening to him and he survives. Organs taken out of his body? He survives. Hannibal feeding him meat? He survives. Framed as the Chesapeake Ripper and shot by Miriam Lass? He survives. Dollarhide biting his lips off and sets him on fire, and he survives. Mind you, that Dollarhide part, which in the books was played by Freddie Lounds, who in the books is a guy. So, Brian, why do you hate Chilton so much? I mean, like, no one likes him, but why do you hate him? Chilton might just not be human at this point, you know? Did anyone else notice that they all kind of have similar names? Frederick, Freddie, Franklin. There's a lot of F's for some reason. I don't know. It's nothing, but sometimes I get confused. Okay, so here is like some really random stuff. When I first started watching Yuri on Ice, I thought that Victor was a lot like Hannibal and Yuri was a lot like Will, in the sense that they look alike. Victor is a gray-haired foreigner, not to mention their hairstyles literally match up. Now, Will isn't as similar looking as Yuri, that I have to admit. And then you have Victor helping Yuri become the best skater that he can be, just as Hannibal teaches Will to finally let go of normalcy and become the beast that he knows he is. I have absolutely no complaints about Alana Bloom and Margot Verter. Love them to the ends of the earth. So, Bedelia. Like I mentioned, she was a very loose metaphor for Lilith, and I don't get the hate that I've seen for her. She's much less evil than Hannibal. She understands how his mind works. Of course, not as well as Will, but she does. She just looked out for herself, and I don't get why people have to call her evil for that. I also didn't like the fact that Hannibal and Will kind of started eating her by the end of this show, because I really liked her and I hoped that they would kind of sort of be friends, but apparently they're both disgusted by Bedelia, is what I learned in the hundreds of analysis and meta posts that I've read on Tumblr. Not to mention that I'm a huge fan of hairstyles, and every time I see her on screen, I just want to know how she gets those curls. I've tried, trust me I have, but I never get them right. Now Abigail did not deserve any of that. Period. Season 4. I obviously want the next season, but at the same time, the show ended on such a beautiful note, and I can't imagine how they could bring in Clarice and not have them locked up or killed, one or the other. So, a bit worried about that. I mean, how are they gonna get their happy ending? Here, the ending is left to the audience's interpretation, and like, Bryan Fuller did say that they ended up in Cuba together, and they are building and living a life in Cuba together. So, like, you can have that little bit of hope, but how are they gonna play this whole Silence of the Lambs thing? I don't get it, and that is what kind of makes me anxious about another season. But what I'm really worried about is Netflix. Netflix has a few things, or rather more like it doesn't have them. The first is weekly episodes, and because of which Netflix shows end up being the 13-hour film structure that shows like Jessica Jones, The Defenders, Stranger Things, all of them have. It doesn't have a per episode thing that you can watch just this episode and feel just as much in a single episode. It is literally like a 13-hour film. You have to watch everything to have any sense of actual anything. Secondly, the removal of restrictions. On NBC, Hannibal had cable restrictions, which personally I think is the reason that it is as good as it is. This is a very violent show. They couldn't say or do things directly, so they had to find unique and clever ways to get the message across, which led to the beautiful visuals. And with Netflix not having the same restrictions as cable, that element of the show could potentially be lost, the way it did on Lucifer. And I don't want that. I really hope that whatever Netflix people are, like the people calling the shots at Netflix, do, if they give us a season 4, they keep that element of Hannibal, the not being direct, being Hannibal. The beautiful visuals, the stunning imagery, the PG-13 ratings. So that's the end of me ranting about Hannibal. I really want another season, and one after that, and after that, and after that. I just hope that the show would stay the way it is. Like this video if you agree, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time. Sending love. Toodles!